Are you a fresh graduate? Do you want to fulfill your educational aspiration by pursuing higher education in various interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary areas like environmental science, environment and occupational health, philosophy, sustainability science, folklore and culture studies? If yes, the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies offers various programs like Master's Program, Graduate Program, Postgraduate Diploma, Certificate and Appreciation Program. The school offers 5 Master's Programs. Master of Science, Environmental Science. The eligibility criteria for MSc Environmental Science is Graduate in Science, BTech, BE, Agriculture Graduate, Forestry Graduate and Veterinary Graduate. School also offers Masters in Environment and Occupational Health, Masters in Sustainability Science, Masters in Philosophy and Masters in Folklore and Culture Studies. The eligibility criteria for these 4 Masters programs is graduate in any discipline. School also offers various socially relevant and need-based PG Diploma programs like PG Diploma in Sustainability Science, PG Diploma in Environment and Occupational Health, PG Diploma in Folklore and Culture Studies and PG Diploma in Migration and Diaspora Studies. The school also offers PG Certificate in Climate Change and Avshist Prabandhan mein Pramar Patra. The school also offers 2 doctoral programs, PhD in Environmental Science and PhD in Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies. The school offers various innovative technologies and multimedia for providing a very excellent student support system. The study material is of high quality. The learner support is provided through Gyan Darshan, Gyan Vani, IRC, Swayam Prabha and Swayam channel of IGNOU. For more detail, please log in to IGNOU website. For online admission in these programs, visit school site and also the Samarth online education portal of IGNOU. So please join these programs and fulfill your educational aspiration.
Namaste, welcome to this session. Today's topic is multi-inter-transdisciplinary research in gender studies. This topic is part of the master's program in gender and development studies and master's program in women's and gender studies. With us, Dr. Sunita Dhal is there. She will explain the significance of multi-inter-transdisciplinary research in gender studies. First thing is that we are mentioning the terms multi, inter and transdisciplinary. So first we need to ask her to define or what do these terms mean.
Okay, thank you so much. So before we explain the concept of trans, multi and interdisciplinary research, I would like to explain that why do we need to study. So this session is very important, as you have said, for both MA Gender and Development Studies and MA in Women's and Gender Studies learners, because they are dealing with the subject gender, which is not only complex and complex in nature, but it is a interdisciplinary concept. And therefore, in this, after watching this video, our learners are expected to differentiate between multi, trans, and interdisciplinary research, and map out some of like the origin of these kind of research globally in the global landscape, and how do we stand gender research per se in the global landscape. And therefore, I say that, because why it's important, I feel that as teachers of gender studies, that every time if we are looking at some assignments of us learners, or they are doing the project on on intersectoral issues, then the term always comes up, it's a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary subject. Therefore, we thought that it's very important for our learners to differentiate, to know and differentiate the origin of these terms and its meaning and what are its features. So the meaning multi, as you say, in many disciplines working in one phenomena and problem, right? Okay. And therefore, if you give in the School of Gender and Development Studies in IGNOU, so the institution of the discipline or the school is on the basis of having multiple disciplines coming together and researching on teaching or researching on a particular subject. Inter is all the phenomena can be studied within an intersectional approach, right? So here your gender becomes an interdisciplinary subject. The meaning is that it can be studied not only in intersectional approach, also in intersectoral approach. When we are talking about intersectional, it largely means we are looking at gender issues, in relation to caste, class, community, ethnicity, disability, sexuality, so on and so forth. And intersectoral approach is when we are looking or placing gender studies in different sectors like education, health, agriculture, science, so on and so forth, right? Environment, climate change. So it is sectoral in nature. So when one phenomena, like one social reality or any scientific reality is studied from a multiple disciplinary approach, it becomes inter. Then we move on to transdisciplinary, like blurring the boundaries of our own discipline, right? We all are researching, but our disciplinary backgrounds are different, and therefore, in a way that the starting point of an inquiry would be your discipline, but at the same time, like the example of the way we develop the gender and development studies. The program. So it is like blurring the boundaries across disciplines to be able to develop a particular program on, in gender studies.
Now they must have got the meaning of the terms. Next one is we need to tell them why do we need to do inter, trans, multidisciplinary research with regard to gender.
Yes, it's very important, like, what is the purpose of doing this kind of research, right? One is that integrated research, like we are, for example, whether we speak about climate change, because it is the most debatable issue, right, in the contemporary context, right? So it cannot be resolved or it cannot be looked at or addressed from a single disciplinary point of from a single disciplinary point. Therefore, integration in terms of its theory, practice, concept, disciplines is important. Second is that research should have impacts with regard to both theory building and improving the conditions of life. Why do we need to do research? The whole idea is that how it leads to a kind of a transformation at the grassroots, and therefore we have to have different disciplines together, but also we have to have policymakers as well as the community involved in the process of research, right? And then aims at developing a systemic and comprehensive theoretical framework for analyzing scientific, social, economic, gender, political, environmental and institutional factors influencing the human conditions. And what could be the areas? Like, way back in 1960s and 70s onwards, research on interdisciplinary started in areas like scientific innovation, population, health, ecology, humanities, desertification, sustainable agriculture, sustainable science, water resource management, climate change, and so on. So like when we are talking about even the emergence of the sustainability paradigm, right? Why do we need to talk about sustainable development goals? So when we really look at SDG, so it is, like one goal is related to the other goal, right? And therefore it's very important that how we can bring a kind of a transformation or a change, a real change at the grassroots level, which is only possible when we look at interdisciplinary concept or one concept in an interdisciplinary lens or transdisciplinary lens, and therefore the purpose becomes here important. So we can give the example like, how it has started the interdisciplinary research with the disease control, which was earlier developed by medical and biological sciences. It is multidisciplinary, right? Then later economics, gender studies began to look at women's health, right? Then it becomes, transgress from multidisciplinary to interdisciplinary, and then move on to the transdisciplinary approach. Like the conference, Alma-Ata Conference 1978, where World Bank and UNICEF focused on disease control through community-based healthcare, community participation, and intersectoral action. So these areas are focusing like community health. So it's focusing on interdisciplinarity in terms of interlinking issues. Not only here we talk about gender, we also talk about health, we also disease mapping, disease control. Then like we had the COVID, and COVID has really made us to look at environment, look at the community.
And also it had a different impact on different people, and based on location also, location specifically when we talk about the access to healthcare facilities.
Correct. Yes.
So the COVID really made not only researchers from the health field,
yes,
other field, researchers working in social sciences, humanities, and other discipline also
yes,
work with health sector. And we were created research material based on inter and multidisciplinary approaches. Next, we can go to the features of transdisciplinary research before we go further, giving few examples to our learners.
Yes, so when we are looking at the features of transdisciplinary, so we have a fair understanding of like learners, like what is multi and now the interdisciplinary, right? And now we come to transdisciplinary research. So it's a kind of a creative collaboration. It's a kind of a fusion. Like disciplines are coming together and blurring the boundaries of disciplines. Like even in IGNOU, while within our university, when we are developing a program, like, so we have come from different disciplines, but while developing a program, we are blurring the boundaries between disciplines or across disciplines to develop a program which will be, transformational in nature, right? And then disciplinary background should be the starting point for this kind of research. So the discipline always important, and in transdisciplinary research to provide a lens, to provide a theoretical concept or conceptual framework to understand a phenomena, and then we have to also accept the differences of other disciplines as well. Each team member needs to be familiar with the concept and approaches of the other team members. Combination of researchers, policy making, implementation, and monitoring. So here the best example is of gender and development studies, the way we look at the concept of gender auditing. Gender budgeting. So this would be an example of your transdisciplinary, the outcome of transdisciplinary approach in undertaking research. So given an example here is Consultative International Agricultural Center in Peru, where agricultural anthropologists, engineers, farmers were working for storing seed or potato seeds, right? So the whole idea is that how we create a kind of a systemic knowledge, and how does that knowledge is targeted towards a particular group, the community, or particular section of population, right? And then that knowledge, systemic knowledge, would be able to bring a kind of a transformational change in terms of improving their living conditions. So this is the, these are some of the features of transdisciplinary research. So if you go further, we look at the level of integration actually makes any research multi, inter, or transdisciplinary in its own character, right? So multidisciplinary research is also called coordinated research, because we are studying one phenomena, single phenomena. However, we have multiple disciplines coming together and trying to understand or trying to do research, carry out research on a single phenomena, right? Like given the example of climate change, which we are going to again bring towards the end of our discussion with the examples. So it is a coordination. Coordination is very important to carry out multidisciplinary research. It does not focus on problem solving. They carry out assessment, like assessment of climate variability and gender. When we were talking about, climate change, climate variability, mitigation and adaptation strategies, then the gender was never, were discussed, even we look at historically, right? But over a period of time, development, like the policy documents, then international agencies, and even in the state also spoke about the gender discourse, how to bring about the gender discourse in climate change, because climate change will have differential impact on women and men and other genders, right? Or therefore, like when we are talking about multidisciplinarity, so the problem solving is not the problem, but it is not the solution, but how do we carry out, unless and until we do a kind of an assessment report, then how do we frame a particular policy targeting a particular community. So from multi, we do an assessment, look at the policy formulations, do a policy formulation or recommendation, then we move on to implementation. Their inter and transdisciplinary approaches are very important when we are talking about implementation of certain policy recommendations at the grassroots level.
Here I would like to give one example based on gender budgeting, and this gender budgeting, the concept has explained in the material of both Masters in Gender and Development Studies as well as Masters in Women's and Gender Studies. When we talk about the transdisciplinary research, there is a combination of researchers, policy makers, and implementation and monitoring. In the research here, the role of the researcher is to first they come from a different disciplines. For example, when we talk about the gender budgeting, economists, researchers from gender studies, researchers from other social science discipline as well as science discipline. For example, if they want to allocate the 30% of the budgetary provisions specifically on specifically to improve women's participation in science and technology, then certainly scientists will be also part of the policy making process. Here, learners must be wondering, why do we need to have a combination of, first we need to, for example, economists, they will collect the required data, for any policy maker, first is that the policy, whatever policies we make, what kind of impact it creates on male, female and other genders, even children also, what kind of impact female children, male children. That's why we need to collect the gender disaggregated data. When we want to collect the gender disaggregated data, economists, they play a significant role. Once we collect the data, then we could able to know the status of male, female and other genders. Accordingly, we can make the policies. Once we make the policies here, when we implement that, after implementing, what kind of impact it creates and if there is any negative impact on any group of people, what improvement we can bring in that same policy for implementing in a better way and bringing a positive results among certain group of people. Before we make any policy making process, first one is that we need to collect the required literature. So policy making consists of elements, policy process and characteristics. So it is the mixture of bringing a strategy. When we bring the strategy, researchers from various disciplines, they come together, they make a strategy, and once they when they make a strategy, they use the various instruments to formulate the policies. That is very important. So policy making process is the combination of strategies and how we implement, how we monitor, and after implementing, what kind of it creates and what do we need to improve that particular policies. So it is the combination of various factors, they play a significant role. When we talk about the combination of various factors, so researchers from different disciplines, they come together and they help to make a necessary policies to bring certain improvements in the life of the people. We can go further. What is the imperatives for transdisciplinary research?
Yes, but like it's a good example, like you have given with gender budgeting, and then we move on to imperatives, like more in relation to transdisciplinary research and gender studies. So feminist political ecology is a transdisciplinary framework under the discipline of geography. So when we are talking about some new frameworks like ecofeminism, I think our learners must have studied, right, in different programs like
Women's and Gender Studies and Gender and Development Studies.
Even Boserov's study on women's work. So how this interdisciplinary research have evolved over transdisciplinary research have evolved over a period of time. Imperative of need and requirement orientation. It's very, what is the need? Why do we need it? And then we must have the orientation as well as the requirement also. Offer transparent and accessible information base and communication structure, and also imperative of long-term involvement. So because it's a commitment, and these are all longitudinal research. So any institution or any kind of program, so it takes about a time to be able to be developed or implemented. Then problematic and expensive and risky also, because time is needed, fund is involved, and availability of expertise, because we have come from different disciplines, but at the same time we must have the kind of knowledge or expertise to develop a particular or to research on a particular topic. So given the example of Lund University, which established the Center for Integration of Social and Natural Dimensions of Sustainability, so it took about 1 to 2 years of multidisciplinarity in research on multidisciplinary framework. Then it took 3 to 5 years. Then when they went ahead with transdisciplinarity, it again took them for 6 to 10 years. So which means these are all longitudinal research, because you have multiple stakeholders here involved, as well as the level of integration will gradually improve from one discipline to multi to inter to transdisciplinary in nature. Then interdisciplinary research, we can give the example like 1992 at the Rio Conference on Sustainable Development focused on interdisciplinary projects. Identification of barriers also very important. Disciplinary barrier, organizational barrier, resources. And then how do we evaluate? Evaluation barriers. Who would evaluate the progress of this kind of research? And when we move on to transdisciplinary and its features, so it is like reaching beyond disciplines, going beyond disciplines, reaching out to other stakeholders. So it is not limited to only academic community, but involving the people. And so transdisciplinary research is more action-oriented research, because both academic, non-academics looking for a solution in rural transformation. And the experiences from Transact Project 2013, but I would give the example, here we can take some example from climate change, right? Because I think in both these programs, learners are aware of gender and climate change intersection. So given the gender in international climate policy, project aims at integrating gender into climate change negotiations. So what is important to recognize women in the climate policy discourse, also agents in coping and survival strategies, their role. Gender analysis of carbon emission. So carbon emission, like who emit the most? Men, women, right? Children across age. Then innovating gendered solutions to mitigate climate change, like looking at the relationship between women and forest, right? It's different vis-a-vis how do men relate with forest. Gender responsive technologies need to be developed, transferred and adapted as per women's need, and climate funding initiatives need to incorporate gender budgeting and auditing of the funds. So this is a source from Gender CC in 2009. So they developed toolkit for development practitioners and policy makers, like how when we are talking about how to integrate gender into the climate policy. And in the last we can give the example of gender and disaster, like disasters often reinforce gender inequality. So with this we can always wind up our discussion. I would request Dr. Gioma, so that how what's the importance of this kind of research for gender studies.
Both of our MAs, Masters in Gender and Development Studies, Masters in Women's and Gender Studies, we have developed in an interdisciplinary approach. Learners would have learned different topics like education, health, agriculture, environment, digital economy in the Masters in Gender and Development Studies and Women's and Gender Studies. When you learn, certainly you need to apply inter and transdisciplinary. Specifically, the learners from MAGD, they must be learning so much on transdisciplinary research in the course MGS 004, where not only they talk about the various programs and policies and how it has been implemented and how it was monitored, and how to find out the gaps in the existing programs, and that gaps can be improved through various methods. When we talk about transdisciplinary research, as we have already mentioned, that we include various stakeholders, including the stakeholders in the field, like people from various walks of life. They became part of the various government programs and policies. When you do the research, they were part of your research programs. That is the one thing I would like to mention. Second thing is that once you understand the concept of multi, inter and transdisciplinary research, certainly this will help you to find a topic to do the research in the first year and second
project
year.
Work or internship.
Project work or internship. We have, as far as MAGD is concerned, we have 2 courses. Both are 4 credit. You need to choose the topic to do the field-based research, or you need to do the internship also. You need to do the internship based on multi-inter transdisciplinary research approach. So this topic certainly will help you, both the MAs, in different ways. Thank you so much for listening this session.
Thank you.